Hi everyone, welcome back to Pages of the Globe. Today I'm going to be reading to you the short story mix War, Art, and Dancing by Ernest Hemingway. Now, this short story is about these soldiers who are they have some time off from their duties, and so they're just focusing on like a night of music. There's some artists standing around painting, and a lot of people are dancing. Now, the story itself actually has no real plot, but that's kind of the point. This piece focuses on a night of music, art, and dancing, where the soldiers can just have some time off. And it's like a little slice of life in general. And it focuses on the feel of the moment and nothing about what's been happening with the soldiers, specifically those ones in the uniform, and there's no allusion to any sort of war. Hemingway has just written this moment to have it have this happy feel, and we kind of just forget the rest of the world for a while. Now, this is quite a popular short story because it was Hemingway's final and favorite Star article. Now, at this point, he had kind of abandoned the typical journalistic lead, and he started the article with the scene and characters instead. Now, this story was, like I said before, supposed to be about just some soldiers' dance with a few really pretty ladies from a fine arts institute. But rather than comparing the happy couples frolicking inside with the lonely streetwalkers outside, which is what most writers would do, Hemingway just kind of states what's happening and tries to make it somewhat lighthearted. This story was very different from his normal style because he's known for his longer novels and short stories, but it does have something to do with the First World War or some kind of similar setting, because that's what he always includes, or not always, but he normally does include in his stories. And it's not really that surprising considering the fact that he himself fought in this story. Now, if you'd like to learn more about Ernest Hemingway, I'm going to tell you a couple facts about him. Ernest Hemingway was born on July 21st, 1899, and died on July 2nd, 1961. He was an American novelist, short story writer, and journalist. His economical and understated style, which he termed the iceberg theory, had a strong influence on 20th century fiction, while his adventurous lifestyle and public image brought him admiration from later generations. Hemingway produced most of his work between the mid-1920s and the mid-1950s, and he was awarded the 1954 Nobel Prize in Literature. He published 7 novels, 6 short story collections, 2 nonfiction works. Many of his works are considered classics of American literature. Ernest Hemingway earned the Italian Silver Medal of Valor and a Bronze Star. Both of them are very, very prestigious awards that you can get in the military. He is also credited with the shortest story written ever, and this is quite interesting because it probably is actually a myth, but I decided to add it in there anyway because it is quite funny and interesting. Now, see, basically, this story it only consists of 6 words. For sale, baby shoes, never worn. A lot of people said that Ernest Hemingway won a bet by writing that 6-word story, and he said that if I tell you a story and I make you cry, then you owe me money. And apparently he did make a grown man cry. Obviously that's probably not true, but it is still a pretty funny story. Now, Hemingway's legacy to American literature and his style was the fact that writers who came after him either emulated his style or avoided its style. After his reputation was established with the publication of The Sun Also Rises, he became the spokesperson for the post-World War I generation, having established a style to follow. Unfortunately, many of his works were burned in Berlin in 1933 as being a monument of modern decadence and disavowed by his parents as filth. But a common thing for his stories was to have them just be so starkly moving that many of them have become part of our cultural heritage now. Without further ado, let's get on to the story. Remember to like, share, subscribe, and comment down below which short story you would like to hear next. Mixed War, Art, and Dancing by Ernest Hemingway. Outside, a woman walked along the wet street lamp-lit sidewalk through the sleet and snow. Inside the Fine Arts Institute on the 6th floor of the YWCA building, 1020 McGee Street, a merry crowd of soldiers from Camp Funston and Fort Leavenworth foxtrotted and one-stepped with girls from the Fine Arts School, while a sober-faced young man pounded out the latest jazz music as he was watching the moving figures. In the corner, a private from the Signal Corps was discussing Whistler with a black-haired girl who heartily agreed with him. The private had been a member of the art colony at Chicago before the war was declared. 3 men from Funston were wandering arm in arm along the wall looking at the exhibition of paintings by Kansas City artists. The piano player stopped. The dancers clapped and cheered as he swung into the long, long trail of winding. An infantry corporal, dancing with a swift, moving girl in a red dress, bent his head close to hers and confided something about a girl in Kansas. In the corridor, a group of girls surrounded a tow-headed young artilleryman and applauded his imitation of his pal Bill, challenging the colonel, who had forgotten the password. The music stopped again, and the solemn pianist rose from a stool and walked out into the hall for a drink. The crowd of men rushed up to the girl in a red dress to plead for the next dance. Outside, the women walked along the wet lamp-lit sidewalk. It was the first dance for soldiers to be given under the auspices of the War Camp Community Service. 40 girls of the art school, chaperoned by Miss Winfred Sexton, secretary of the school, and Miss L.F. Binney, were the hostesses. The idea was formulated by J.P. Robertson and the War Camp Community Service, and announcements were sent to commandments at Camp Funston and Fort Leavenworth, inviting all soldiers on leave. Posters made by the girl students were put up in Leavenworth on the interurban trains. The first dance will be followed by others at various clubs and schools throughout the city, according to Mr. Robertson. The pianist took his seat again, and the soldiers made a dash for partners. In the intermission, the soldiers drank to the girls in fruit punch. The girl in red, surrounded by a crowd of men in olive drab, seated herself at the piano, and the men and the girls gathered around and sang until midnight. The elevator had stopped running, and so the jolly crowd bunched down the 6 flights of stairs and rushed waiting motor cars. After the last car had gone, the woman walked along the wet sidewalk through the sleet and looked up at the dark windows of the 6th floor.